Here we have Malcolm X's Wikipedia page. As we all know, Wikipedia is information we're forced to believe, even though probably all of it's false. But in any event, Malcolm X Wikipedia page. When you scroll down to his assassination, the part involving his death, and we have here assassination on February 21st, 1965, in Manhattan's Audubon Ballroom. And notice how it's hyperlinked, so you can check out an information page about the place where he was assassinated and the city. Malcolm X began to speak at a meeting of the Organization of Afro-American Unity when a disturbance broke out in the crowd of 400. A man yelled, blank, "Get your hand out of my pocket." As Malcolm X and his bodyguards moved to quiet the disturbance, a man rushed forward and shot him in the chest with a sawed-off shotgun. Now here we have sawed-off shotgun, which is also hyperlinked. 2 other men charged the stage and fired handguns, hitting him 16 times. Furious onlookers caught and beat one of the assassins as the others fled the ballroom. Malcolm X was pronounced dead at 3:30 p.m. shortly after he arrived at Columbia Presbyterian Hospital. Now this is hyperlinked as well. Now notice, the man who murdered Malcolm X has no hyperlinked page, meaning that they don't want you to find out information about the guy who killed him. I find anomalies like this all over Wikipedia when referencing information, so it's one thing I think you should look out for.
As to the true killers, many people, from the black Muslims to the highest state authorities, could be implicated. 4 trails keep coming back. The New York Police Department. The living proof is Gene Roberts, the informer we've been following through this whole film. The CIA, which was very suspicious of the powerful links established by Malcolm X with African leaders. The FBI. Hoover and his staff were looking very closely into the friendship of the country's 2 enemies number 1, Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. And finally, the black Muslim leaders themselves.
Ali Shabazz, Malcolm X. And in it is contained passages from a speech by Louis Farrakhan. And here is one excerpt.
What have you got to say about it? Did you teach Malcolm? Did you make Malcolm? Did you clean up Malcolm? Did you put Malcolm out before the world? Was Malcolm your traitor or was he ours? And if we dealt with him like a nation deals with a traitor, what the hell business is it of yours?
That was in 1993.
Really? A few months ago.
Yeah. On Savior's Day, I believe.
I see.
Tonight, the Nation of Islam is reacting with anger to allegations that have put its leader under fire. Those sensational charges are in a story we told you about exclusively on News 4 New York last night. The widow of Malcolm X is accusing Louis Farrakhan of involvement in Malcolm's assassination.
After seeing the Speaker of the Nation of Islam say what he just did about Malcolm, it is not so hard to believe that Farrakhan may have had something to do with the assassination, which is exactly what the media and government want us to think. Why else would this have been such a televised and talked about occurrence? The truth of the matter is, Malcolm was expelled from the NOI for several reasons, and the group at the time felt as though Malcolm's views and actions during the months leading up to his assassination were against their beliefs. So they dealt with Malcolm as they would any Muslim who went against their non-violent approach to reaching world harmony. Malcolm had received bad press when he announced shortly after the death of John F. Kennedy that it was an inside job, or in his own words, the chickens have come home to roost. The Nation of Islam became very upset with this, and after Malcolm exposed the nation's leader, Elijah Muhammad, of impregnating several of his young secretaries, the wedge that many believe killed Malcolm X was set into place. The nation did not condone violence, and after the threats on his life and family, he pursued and armed himself in protection, something also forbidden by the NOI.
Why are they threatening your life?
Well, primarily because they're afraid that I will tell the real reason that that I'm out of the black Muslim movement, which I never told. I kept to myself. But the real reason is that Elijah Muhammad, the head of the movement, is the father of 8 children by 6 different teenage girls, 6 different teenage girls who were his private personal secretary. The one who first made me aware of this was Wallace Muhammad, Mr. Muhammad's son. And I had stated in a newspaper article about an effort to take my life back in January, and at that time the Muslims denied it. In fact, they tried to make it appear to my brother that I was insane. But on a program in Chicago called Hotline, that's moderated by Wesley South, John Ali, the national secretary, admitted, I think it was Wednesday or Thursday, one of these days last week, that they absolutely were going to kill me.
What steps will you take to protect yourself from this threat?
I take no steps. I have a rifle. If anybody comes to my house without a good reason, I intend to try and use it, and that's all.
Right now?
No, I don't worry. I tell you, I'm a man who believed that I died 20 years ago, and I live like a man who is dead already. I have no fear whatsoever of anybody or anything.
Who killed Malcolm X? 3 black Muslims, members of the Nation of Islam, were convicted. But the current leader of the Nation of Islam, Louis Farrakhan, now acknowledges that words he spoke may have triggered the assassination.
As I may have been complicit in words that I spoke, I acknowledge that and regret that any word that I have said caused the loss of life of a human being.
Who killed Malcolm X? 3 black Muslims, members of the Nation of Islam, were convicted. 2 of them served 20 years. The 3rd is still not free. But the current leader of the Nation of Islam, Louis Farrakhan, has long been suspected as the instigator, the behind-the-scenes force who triggered the killing. Malcolm's late widow believed that, as do his children to this day. But now, finally, Atala Shabazz, the eldest daughter of Malcolm X, and Louis Farrakhan, agreed to talk about the assassination for the first time in front of a reporter. For Shabazz, not without some misgivings.
I did not know if I wanted to sit across from him. I didn't know if my heart could handle it.
Didn't know if she could sit with a man she still holds responsible for her father's death. Confronting Minister Farrakhan would not be easy, and for strength, she told us, she summoned the memory of her parents.
Before I came here, I prayed and included my parents. They had to walk with me to the airport. They had to get me out of that hotel and into the property here.
You see, Atala Shabazz was there in the Audubon Ballroom in 1965 in New York to watch her father make a speech. She was there with her 2 younger sisters and her pregnant mother. And Atala, only 6 years old, watched as gunmen killed her father. Here's how her late mother, Betty Shabazz, described the murder.
I heard shots, and I saw people crawling on the floor. And so I got down too. Then when I was looking out and I saw someone look in amazement to the front, I knew they had shot my husband. And my children were crying, you know, what's going on? What's going on? Are they going to shoot us? I'm a child with a forever memory of the most significant man in my life standing at a podium and falling backwards. That's forever.
Miss Shabazz, for several months, I carried the picture of your father with all of these bullet holes in his chest. And I looked at the man that taught me, the man that nurtured me, the man that was the example of a man to me. And I wept.
If you were around in the 90s, you may recall a popular talk show about black culture called Arsenio Hall. Many believe that one of his last shows, which featured Farrakhan as a guest, was one of the reasons the show went off the air in 1994. Here's a clip from that infamous episode.
It's only an hour show, so I figure we'll get right down to it. Why do you think there has been so much resistance to me having you on the show? Not just white people. I've had black people tell me, what you need to do is get sick on Wednesday. True story. Get sick on Wednesday and cancel Thursday, Friday. Jesus said, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free." Unfortunately, millions and millions of people on this earth are deprived of that particular truth of which Jesus spoke. And the great fear of those who hold our people in captivity is that our people will come into that particular truth that will make us a free people, justified and equal before God and man. But as we talked about this show before all of this controversy arose, I told you then and I tell you now, ask me anything that is in the hearts and minds of your listeners, white or black, Jewish or Gentile. And if I cannot answer those questions with truth, then I have no business being on this show. Let's start with, let us start with, because I have gone into the neighborhood and I've gone to the furthest suburb trying to find out what's on people's mind, my research department. One question that comes out of the neighborhood most often is, who killed Malcolm X? Since the movie, there are a lot of people who feel, you know, Minister Farrakhan had something to do with that. And I know you've heard it. Yes, I've heard it. More so now than ever before. When Malcolm was assassinated, if you would go back and read all of the accounts, the name of Louis X, as I was called at that time, was never, ever, ever mentioned. Why now? Farrakhan, who was a student of Malcolm and an adorer of Malcolm, but became an enemy of Malcolm when Malcolm split from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Because of that fact, and because of the fact that I wrote an article in the Muhammad Speaks saying that Malcolm was worthy of death, and several months later, Malcolm was assassinated, the press would like for black people to believe that Farrakhan had something to do with the assassination of Malcolm, not because they really believed that, because if that were so, the grand jury should open this case again and bring Farrakhan before courts of law. But the press does not want to do that. They want to try Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam in the media and castigate us in the media, but that is only because what is in my mouth is freeing black people all over the earth. And so if they can discredit me, then the truth that I speak will be of non-effect. I don't know who murdered Malcolm, but I believe with all my heart that two men who belonged to the Nation of Islam, who were picked up after Talmadge Hayer was picked up at the Audubon Ballroom, have been charged and found guilty of a crime that I believe those two men were innocent of. During the trial, Talmadge Hayer, who was the brother that was caught at the scene, said in court that the other two men were absolutely innocent. And when he was asked to name the co-conspirators in the murder of Malcolm, he refused to do it at that time. So those two innocent men went to prison for 26 years of their life. But during that time, Talmadge Hayer, under Kunstler, named all 5 of those who were with him in the assassination of Malcolm, and Kunstler tried to get the government to reopen the case, and they refused to do it because it suits the government's purpose to say that the nation, and that's a big name, the nation killed Malcolm.
Plan of action was basically what took place. Me and Leon, we took seats down in the front of the Audubon. We came early. We would drift into the Audubon. If indeed there was a search, then we could never enter. There was no search, so we drifted in just like we had hoped to. Leon Davis and myself took seats down front on the left-hand side. Benjamin and William, who carried the sort of shotgun, sat right behind us. you know. And Wilbur sat somewhat in the back or almost in the middle. And our plan was, as soon as the brother came out to speak, that Wilbur would throw the smoke bomb to make a distraction, and that William would fire his shotgun, and that Leon and myself, we would fire our weapons, and then this break for the door.